Andrew Wilson is now locked in. It was confirmed.
Yes.
He is debating Candace Owens, the queen of the SRI wine mom conspiracy theory, on the Tyler Robinson issue. And it's going to be both Andrew's claim that there's overwhelming evidence that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk, and Candace's claim, which is not exactly clear to me, but he's a patsy, there's a conspiracy, something along these lines.
Yeah.
You actually, Andrew and I covered the preliminary hearing. So we watched the whole thing from the comfort of our own homes and provided analysis and coverage. But you actually went there. So can you, like, I don't know, give my audience a sense of like what you saw and what happened while you were there?
Yeah, for sure. So for context, I was only there on Friday. So I was there on the day that became kind of the most notable, because this was, there was the accidental sharing of one of the exhibits, which was not meant to be seen by the public. There was just an accident. The person who was directing the media had the camera panned over to one of the screens in the courtroom that captured, or that showed rather, the exhibits to not the jury, but the court. And well, when you say the court, you mean the judge, right? Anyway, the people present. So that was the catalyst for the defense saying, hey, we want to re-examine the court being open to media, the exhibits being shown to the public. And the judge, I think, made the proper ruling. I wish, obviously, that we could have avoided all of this by being just a little bit more careful. But at the end of the day, he didn't give it all to the defense, and he did allow, still a pretty large amount of the information to be disclosed. You didn't miss out on much besides this one video that was shown on Friday, which became the subject of so much scrutiny, which, we were shown it in the court, and it was specifically requested to be held until the very end by Erica's lawyer, or by the lawyers of who would it be? I guess just the victims.
Yeah, the victim's family, and then, because it's prosecution and the defense, and then the other lawyers of the victim's family, and the media had lawyers there.
Yeah,
and as I recall, on the first or second day, I think it was I can't remember if it was the first or second day, the prosecution introduced video surveillance that showed Tyler Robinson moving around the campus, or allegedly moving around the campus, if I'm going to be careful. And they said, and we heard argument about this, that they had an enhanced version where they zoomed in and they circled him, and because it's very zoomed out at times. It's hard to follow. Yeah. Where they would make his movements more clear. The judge accepted that into evidence. So the judge said, I'm going to look at it, but I'm not going to let the public see it. I'm only going to let the public see one, and it's the zoomed out version with no enhancement. So is that what you saw on Friday, the enhanced version where it's zoomed in and you can better see what's happening?
Yes. Yeah. And it traced, and you'll have to forgive me. I may have just missed this part. I know there was segments of the video that we were shown in court. I don't know if they were compiled in full the way that we saw it. The video that we were shown on Friday, which was the last day, and like I said, it was requested that this be held to the end to kind of bring everybody back to why we were even there, especially because on the last day, the defense was bringing up, acting like they're geneticists, doing an analysis of, actually, which was just totally baloney. And I'm glad that the prosecution really called them on it, and the judge sided with the prosecution on that. Anyway, the video that we were shown, it basically tracks all of, by my understanding, all of the on-camera surveillance footage of Tyler Robinson moving around the campus from the first time that he appeared there till, when the shooting occurs. And afterwards, it tracks his movements as well, getting off of the roof of the Losi building, moving through the woods a little bit, and then a little bit thereafter, although some of the specifics are blurry. And I think if there's anything that I wish to impress upon people, it is that a lot of people, and it could be honestly my failing memory compared to theirs, which maybe is hyper sharp, but remember, everybody there only saw this video once. And there were rows of benches, and some people were sat, quite far back. The TV screens were not, 100-inch TV screens, which means that details if you are in the back row, are difficult to make out. And if you look away for a second, you could miss a detail that somebody claims was really obvious to them, but wasn't at all obvious to you. So keep in your mind, when people make any kinds of claims about the evidence, they're basing it on a video that they saw one time. And this goes, this, by the way, reflects onto all of us who were saying, yeah, it's kind of cut and dry that this is him, but also to the people who were there, Brandy Siciliani and some others who have claimed it absolutely was not clear. So just remember the information that we had and take it with a grain of salt because of that. However, it was more clear than the video that everybody has seen. It was. The circles were drawn. There was a circle drawn when Tyler Robinson allegedly gets onto the roof in order to help you more closely, track his movements on the roof. The version that I had seen of the roof footage almost always does not show him when he is at the further left side, which would be south, basically where he takes the prone position. In the footage we were shown, he's basically at the top left of the screen. Honestly, it is difficult to make out, for instance, if there is a rifle or if there is, a long rifle looking object. It seems clear he has some object. You do see him get into the prone position. There is a timestamp at the top, so you can track the timing of his movements across the roof. It times up perfectly with when the shot was taken. So if you do believe, and this is what I've been saying, if you believe it's Tyler Robinson in the footage, this is now the best evidence that we have that traces his movements on campus from well before the shooting all the way through the shooting.
And to follow up on that,
yeah.
It sounds like the dots that the prosecution would have to connect are, well, here's some footage of this person that has been identified as Tyler Robinson by both police officers and by Lance Twiggs.
Yeah.
And he's wearing the hoodie and the jeans and the sunglasses and the hat, right? Yep. And we follow him across campus.
And the Converse, by the way.
Yeah, with closer video.
Yep.
Right? Now, we're going to cut to the roof, and it's zoomed out. And the intuitive leap is you can't see the perfect detail, but you did see the guy in those clothes go up to the roof in closer video. And now you're seeing somebody who's wearing what appears to be the same clothes, admittedly zoomed out, running across the roof, lying prone at the time when the shot that killed Charlie Kirk was fired.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's basically it, right? Is that, for people who don't believe it's Tyler Robinson, the burden of proof is basically like an HD photo of the guy's face while he's on the roof. I'm sorry, such a thing just isn't going to exist, but such a thing has not been necessary in a whole number of cases where you've been able to, have a person otherwise positively identified. And that's completely disregarding the wealth of other evidence that points to this, being premeditated, whether it's the Dremel, whether it's, the messages that he had, literally programmed and sent out, the confessions. What I think is also very funny is that the same people who will absolutely dismiss the part of the Lance Twiggs interview where he positively identifies the person in the staircase as Tyler Robinson, those same people will then use that interview in order to substantiate the claim that Lance is making something up or that something is not true. They are willing to dismiss or accept evidence as it best fits or suits their case. I don't think they're engaging honestly with any of it. And that to me is the issue. The question here is, who is our prime suspect? The people who don't believe it's Tyler Robinson don't have a prime suspect. When any honest person could tell you, even if we're not entirely sure, even if it's not past, a reasonable doubt, well, we still have a prime suspect. Any reasonable person would be willing to tell you Tyler Robinson.
Netanyahu.
Yeah, exactly, right? And that's the point, is that there is a million times more evidence making Tyler Robinson the perpetrator than there ever could be making Erica Kirk or Bibi Netanyahu or anybody else your prime suspect. And so I would say, and kind of recalling the piece of evidence, the moment where he jumps off the roof is more clear. I thought that was like the clearest that I could see the firearm. It seemed very obvious it was a firearm. Details of his clothing, the fact that they were the same as the clothing that he had in the staircase, that was more obvious as well. But I think that people who didn't see it, they had their perception or maybe what they imagined the evidence was. They had that significantly warped or significantly biased by the fact that Jack Posobiec and Benny Johnson and Brandon Tatum made claims that said, oh, this was 4K evidence. It's not 4K. It is enhanced. It is better. It's the best version of that evidence that we have. But when you don't see something and somebody tells you it's 4K, you're likely imagining something that it really wasn't. And so I wish we would have been a little more careful in our language.
Yeah, Posobiec probably shouldn't have said that, to be honest with you. It sounds like he overstated it from the way you're describing it and the way others have described it.
Yeah.
That said, it's not a trial. We're not trying to prove anything beyond a reasonable doubt at this point. That's what trial is for. But in terms of the overwhelming nature of the evidence, if you see somebody on the roof running across the roof with an object lying down at the time a shot is fired, then you see a close-up of them jumping off the roof and they're wearing these particular clothes and outfit. And you've seen Tyler Robinson on campus wearing those exact same clothes, walking towards the staircase, which leads to the roof a few moments prior. And then you find his screwdriver on the roof and his gun in the woods with the Dremel and the bullets, and the bullets are found at his house, and he confesses to the crime, and he comes back to try to find the gun, and his lover says that he did it. Like, at a certain point, you've got to be like, well, that's a lot of evidence, right? And if you think all of that is fabricated or a patsy, there's an extraordinary amount of evidence to the contrary. You're making an extraordinary claim. What evidence do you have that this is all a setup? And what I typically hear is something like, well, don't you know that if you look at the car, the exhaust pipes are, it's like some hyper specific detail that typically is inaccurate, or if it is accurate, it doesn't matter. Yeah. And I've yet to have anyone present evidence that gave me real pause after thinking about it, but they just kind of flood the zone with it. It's frustrating.
By the way, the footage from within the parking facility, it is much more clear too. Like, the vehicle is much more clear.
Really?
Yeah, that to me, it seemed much more obvious. I mean, the footage that I had seen before, it seemed like very compressed. Like, the photos people were showing is like, look at this car, and it's like, you can tell there's like video compression on it where it looks like it's a box instead of like, the actual vehicle. I thought the footage there was also more clear. But again, to your point, this piece of evidence, in everybody's mind, they have this perception that it will make or break the case. That's not actually the purpose of this evidence. The reason this evidence was kept till the end was basically to tie everything back, to what we were really there for, which was the actual assassination. It wasn't the DNA garbage. It wasn't, even though, the DNA is an important piece of evidence, it wasn't the fact that it's being cross-examined in this juvenile way. It wasn't any of that. It was the fact that, hey, somebody was assassinated. This is a video that, if you believe it's Tyler Robinson, shows the man who was right there in the courtroom going through the actions that he did on that day that led up and then went past the actual murder, including the murder itself. So everybody has in their mind that this piece of evidence will, sink or swim this entire, investigation. That was never the case. We have had basically what this evidence shows available to us before, and what we have now is a better version of that evidence. Should we accept that? Should we be happy that we have a better version of that evidence? Absolutely. Does it make it more clear? Absolutely. But is there going to be more that is more damning? Is there already other evidence that is more damning? Of course. So I think what it was the timing of everything that put the perception in people's minds that everything rests on this piece of evidence, when that never was the case.
So here's the weird part for me as an attorney. I always assumed the video was basically as you've described it to be. And the reason I made this assumption, which is, by the way, a pretty easy one to make, is that the lawyers described it this way to the judge. And said, this is what we're going to show you. And then the judge got to see it and took it into evidence. Now, if the lawyers were like lying or overhyping it or misrepresenting it, that would be devastating for their credibility and for their case as prosecutors. So they would have no reason to overhype this in front of the judge. If anything, they'd want to play it very straight and underplay it and just get the judge to look at it.
Totally.
So, but I think for non-attorneys, they don't recognize the amount of checks that are on the lawyers in the room, where like the lawyers can't blow smoke because they have a reputational concern. This judge is going to take them to trial. They can't blow up their case over some like media hype show. but of course the video shows exactly, what you've said. And of course it doesn't have like his face while he's lining up the shot, like people
it's not shot by Christopher Nolan. Okay. It's just like
people act like we never got a murder conviction before the advent of like ubiquitous video surveillance.
Oh no, literally. It's like, sorry, the flock cameras weren't on the UVU rooftop at that point. No, but it is so frustrating to me because, when you look at all of this, the big thing now is that, the fact that Jack Posobiec or Benny Johnson, the fact that they, exaggerated what the evidence showed, or maybe, maximized, they made very maximal claims about what it showed. The fact they did that is proof that it's all a fraud. Well, what do you think is going to happen? You think the judge is going to say, oh, wow, this piece of evidence that I just saw with my own eyes, Jack Posobiec said that it clearly shows him like shooting the gun, so I got to go with his word. It's like, absolutely not. And what that actually demonstrates is that all of the people who have been, contending so wildly about the words of the influencers who were there, it shows that their perception of this entire trial is all in the court of public opinion. They don't think anything else matters. They don't think that an actual conviction matters. They don't think that the evidence is relevant in front of a jury. All they believe is that, well, if Benny Johnson gets somebody to believe that the evidence is damning, then we'll have succeeded in spite of what the court comes up with. And it's so obviously not that way. And that's when you ask yourself, it's like, if we get a conviction here, would Candace Owens ever even accept it? No. Absolutely not. She's made up her mind already. All of this is post hoc. And that's why you can't take her serious.
No, it's really funny. Like I've had a few conversations with people on X. I try to avoid them. I've learned that like actually the only way to engage with these people is they'll say something in the comments to one of my YouTube videos or to me on X, and it's a mistake to get into any back and forth with them because they're just they're lunatics and they'll just type things. And in the back and forth of typing, there's no way to check them. And so they just keep typing, right? So the only response is like, I have a show. I would be delighted for you to come on and we can talk about it. And they never do. Never, ever. Which is why I'm so excited about this thing with Andrew and Candace. I'm gonna be flying out to help him prep in a few days. And it's gonna be fireworks, So I obviously, I mean, Candace, though, Andrew's a great debater, but Candace is no slouch. So
she's a sophist. With the best of them.
She's a sophist, and I want to give the devil her due, right? Like she's very, very good on camera. Yeah. And she's a very sharp and effective kind of memer and communicator. So I don't want to make this sound easy. I don't think it's going to be easy, but I think this is the best opportunity anybody's had to kind of lay bare the obvious, which is that like, we have not had a trial, but the evidence that we've seen is really something.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw this, but when they did, defense wanted briefing on probable cause, which is unusual because normally the judge just says, yeah, there's probable cause. But in their brief, they wrote, this is likely as straightforward a bind over decision as this court will ever see. After admitting to several friends, including his roommate and romantic partner, that he assassinated Charlie Kirk in front of approximately 3,000 eyewitnesses, defendant surrendered to law enforcement for these crimes. These admissions, along with others, establish probable cause to support most of the elements of the charges. DNA testing, surveillance video, and eyewitness testimony buttresses these elements, and that's the point. He confessed, and everything in his confession is corroborated by the video, the DNA, the physical evidence. Like he confessed, and then it's backed up by the evidence. That's as straightforward as you could get. It's hard to imagine wanting more than that.
Well, I just hope that, or rather, I would say I'm very glad that these people, weren't in Congress a couple years ago, because we wouldn't have a Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Yeah, they would have very happily gone with what Christine Blasey Ford said. So I don't know. It's that really rubs me the wrong way. It's that Candace Owens has become the greatest defender of the man who killed Charlie Kirk. and it's just so disrespectful. It's truly ridiculous.
I'm going to make a softer version of a point that Andrew makes, because I don't think I need to go quite as far to land it, which is that if you were trying to distinguish her behavior from a leftist op meant to like sow discord and distrust amongst the right, would any aspect of her behavior change? Like,
nope.
None. Like, this is why I think it has legs when Andrew says, like, no, like, I think they're coordinating with Z or Act Blue or this or that, because it's so obviously helpful for the left, for the right to abandon Turning Point USA, which was the only organization to crack the code and break the left's total monopoly on higher education as a political base in my life. And I'm a decently old guy. Like, this has never happened previously. And what are you going to do if you don't have that organization?
Yeah. Well, and you know, and this is kind of what I'll run out with, because I got to get running. But really, you know, what I would say is I kind of take a different position, which is that I think Candace Owens believes everything she's saying, but I think that her perspective is significantly warped by the fact that she is making so much money off of this. And it was actually Ben Shapiro who pointed this out, you know, particularly acutely, this monetary incentive that she has to lie, to continue lying. But you know, like with all things, it's not as if the only way to manipulate somebody is by puppeteering them around and literally pulling the strings. Actually, what's way more effective is getting somebody to believe the things that you want them to say. And I think that's how it is with Candace. I think she truly believes what she's saying. And if there is any conspiracy that exists, it's that the powers that be have allowed her to continue saying what she has over years. She is not an institutional threat. She's actually doing a lot of cover for the institutions because, like you said, you know, Z is, you know, loving this. She's lapping this up.
Oh, yeah. Well, I know you got to run, and I appreciate you coming on a little bit later. I'm going to be in the room doing debate prep.
Yes.
You saw the video. We didn't. What is the, you know, and obviously we talked about the details now, but like, what's the elevator pitch? What's the sentence or two about this video that you saw that you think is impactful on the way you think about the case?
It's going to be interesting because Candace is going to claim that she has the video, but even better. I mean, that's what she claimed on social media. I'll be honest, the video that she posted, by my recollection, was not the exact same as the one that we saw. It seemed like the framing of it seemed different than the one that we saw. And it actually, in ways, looked better than the one that we saw. So I would say to Andrew, don't make claims with this piece of evidence that were never originally claimed. She is going to try and do that. She's going to say, well, what about this piece of evidence that everybody said was this, and that? Andrew can just say, I don't give a crap what the influencer said. This piece of evidence was not brought up, you know, to the judge to be this ultimate damning, defining moment. If it were, it probably would have been brought up way earlier, like most of the more damning evidence was. This was more so to kind of round out the entire thing and bring up a piece of evidence. And by the way, the timing of it was also because the judge had to review it. In the age of AI, I mean, if the judge felt that this was being manipulated in some kind of way, of course he wouldn't allow it. Of course he wouldn't permit it. And that might even be why he didn't want it to be seen by the public, because he thinks it could have biased them more. But yeah, I would stick to exactly what was brought up in court. Don't allow her to say that there was a claim made with the evidence that was never ever made. The evidence is a better version of evidence we already had that, yes, does corroborate the movements of Tyler Robinson across the campus that day. And the question is, if you have, like, look at it as a causal logic chain. You have a man who is walking around the campus, who appears to be walking with a limp because he could have something hidden in his pants, who goes from the parking garage, who goes up the staircase, who walks around campus in these specific ways that we see, who then walks to the staircase, which he has to go to prior to ascending to the place where he would allegedly take the shot. That is a causal logic chain. You then see him descend from the roof. That is a causal logic chain. Where is the break in that causal logic chain that would lead us to believe that a significant change took place? Where does that happen? And if it happens, could you provide any piece of evidence that would cause us to just discard the fact that we have seen a consistent trend of movement that leads up to the shooting?
Yeah, it's really interesting too, because, and I know you got to run, but they always do this like, I'm just asking questions thing.
Yeah.
Like, but like Baron Coleman, I analyzed on the show. He had this whole rant about he didn't think that Tyler Robinson was even on campus because it was so far away from his house. And why would he be there? And it's like, well, he was on campus. So now if you're just asking questions, wouldn't that go both ways?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you have to just ask questions about why someone who's not a student was on campus, confessed to the murder, and then was tracked to, like, you know, at a certain point, like, it's not that the burden of proof shifts, that's always on the state. But if your theory is that he was never there and then it's proven that he was there, don't you have to update your mental model? Or no, dude, you're just, nah, it's all good.
Totally. And this is what I say is you have to talk about it like a conspiracy theorist. You have to say, you think the microphone killed him? Dude, that would be way too obvious. Israel killing him in today's climate, that's like the most obvious thing ever. Dude, okay. Really? You think that the microphone killed him? Well, then how do you come up with the fragments, huh? You think they just planted the fragments on his body? And what about, you know, the confession or the note that he left? Oh, you think that was just like planted there? Okay, dude. Like, if you talk like a conspiracy theorist about this stuff, then oftentimes people will realize how ridiculous they sound. But yeah, you have to ask those questions. Every single time somebody says, well, you know, well, somebody else was the shooter. What was Tyler Robinson doing on the roof? Well, he was just the patsy. Well, why did he have a gun? Why was a bullet fired from the gun? Well, they needed him to take the shot. So you think 2 shots were taken? It's like you just ask those questions and it falls apart.
Those are my two favorite idiotic theories that have been said to me. I think this is mostly X. One of them was, I was like, well, if this evidence is so good, why didn't the defense bring it up?
Yeah.
And they go, because they're in on it. And I was like, really? Okay. I thought that was good. And the other one I like is they're like, Tyler's in on it, but it was a different shooter, but Tyler's in on it. And I was like, so Tyler is getting himself convicted and put to death in service of the conspiracy.
Yeah.
That's the claim.
And then what's the idea? Like, what is he, Mossad? Like the conspiracy that who created? Like, you know what? Maybe I buy that if it's like the DSA. Maybe I buy that if it's like, you know, this huge liberal thing. And they're like, look, we have this elaborate way of killing him. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you could do it way more efficiently. You know, it doesn't matter that you could just like get on a roof and take a shot. We have to do it with a microphone, but we need you to take the fall for it. It's like, what?
But that's what I mean. It's like Schrodinger's conspiracy. Like on one hand, you have this video from Baron Coleman where he's like, Tyler Robinson played Magic the Gathering and loved furries. A guy like that couldn't even look at a website to know where Charlie Kirk was speaking. That was his argument. And now suddenly it's like, oh yeah, he's in on the conspiracy. And then, you know, they got the fucking Israeli planes, the Egyptian, and you got to make up your mind. Is he a Mossad agent or a, you know, Magic the Gathering playing furry who can't look at a website? Like pick a lane.
And at the end of the day, all of it actually comes together perfectly, which is that you have an individual, a younger male who is autistic, antisocial, neurotic, by all accounts, had 2,000 hours in VR chat, did spend time on like these parasocial websites. You see an individual who absolutely fits the bill for somebody who's going to create, you know, or somebody who's going to go out and commit this kind of act of violence. There are so many people that fall into this kind of like psychological type. And when people ask me, they're like, do you really think Tyler Robinson did it? I find that the most persuasive thing I can tell them is I do, because I know people who are like him. I know people who have been way too online. I know people who allow that to become their lives. And, you know, if somebody has 2,000 hours in VR chat, the CIA could not invent that person. That is something that like genuinely happens organically among people who have something wrong with them. And so I think that's the most convincing thing is I tell them, look, I've seen people like that and they exist in my generation. And that's why I don't think that it's ridiculous, is because I've seen people just like him.
Well, Kai, I think that's very well put. And I know you got to run. Thank you for coming on and sharing your perspective. I'll make sure to pass it on to Andrew. And, you know, I'm hopefully that we have a good showing on Friday and give a little kick into Team Wine Mom.
I am so excited. And when you see Andrew, just console him a little bit, because we did just have a debate and it didn't quite go his way. So just be sure to console him a little bit.
I'll let him know you talked to me.
Love you, man. Hey,
Have a good one,
appreciate
Kai.
you. Have a
Good
good
seeing
one.
you.